3, 2, 1, boom, let's go.
It's life outside the box.
That is how we start every podcast.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Right, let's get straight into it, guys.
We have a special guest.
We're going to let Samuel introduce you.
So we have the Pilates queen, Miss Lauren, joining us here today this morning. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, so I'm Lauren. I teach Pilates mainly online and occasionally in studios, CrossFit gyms, but mainly focusing on getting people out of their backs, out of their everyday posture and fixing themselves up with Pilates.
So the reason that we decided that Lauren would be the perfect guest for you guys out there is because not only is she a Pilates instructor who understands the body, she's also an unbelievable CrossFit athlete. So the crossover between how she teaches Pilates and being able to perform CrossFit movements is greatly appreciated and something you guys out there could probably learn a lot from.
I like that you call me a CrossFit athlete. That sounds, legit.
Compared to Mike, everyone's a CrossFit athlete.
True, yeah, true.
Okay, that's how this podcast is going to go. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to start off just quickly chatting about how our weeks have been. So, Samuel, what have you been up to this week?
My week's been pretty good. So last weekend we did the CrossFit quarterfinals, which was a big success, a lot of fun. So most of my energy went into that. And then after that, I've just kind of been easing myself back into training and celebrating as well a little bit after the weekend.
Yeah, you smashed the quarterfinals. You did so well. So good. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
You did, or I would like for the people on YouTube for him to do some pistol squats right now.
Well, it's a demo right now.
Just to demo some pistol squats.
Unfortunately, they can't see that. Out of frame.
So you smashed the quarterfinals this weekend. What have you been up to, Lauren, this week?
Training a lot, eating a lot, sleeping a lot. I mean, there's not been anything sort of major going on except for supporting the guys watching the quarterfinals. It's really cool to see, and I'm kind of glad I wasn't doing them, to be honest, because they looked horrendous. But just been enjoying Bali as per usual and catching up with a lot of friends. There's some new people coming onto the island, so seeing them has been really cool.
100%, yeah. Obviously, we were all at the gym there for the whole weekend. I did actually do a couple of the quarterfinals workouts.
Attempted them, yeah.
Did them, which was actually fun. But any training highs this week? Give me a training high, come on.
Training high. Do you know what? Working on my weightlifting a bit more, and I'm not just saying that because Sam takes the class, but working on technique a bit more has been my thing recently. I think a lot of people come here and it's like, right, smash out the cardio, need to burn calories, whereas I've just been enjoying actually just kind of just brush up technique as well.
Yeah, it's been really good to see you crushing it this week
in
the clean and jerk.
Thank you.
We can just compliment each other.
And then just insult Mike.
It's all right.
We'll team up.
You're not the first guest to do that. It's all good. So any news, guys? I actually read a super interesting paper this morning, which we had a little pre-chat about before, and it was about somebody has extracted the probiotics from a gold-winning Olympic weightlifting woman and infused them in mice, and that showed increased muscle mass and reduced body fat in the mice, which seems like a good thing, but it just really worries me just about where this is all going to head. Like, it genuinely does. It's good because obviously we're showing that our bodies adapt to different antibodies put in them or probiotics put in them, but it does worry me about where science is going.
That's a bit creepy.
Yeah, the future is scary.
The future is definitely scary. It's like one of those Black Mirror episodes.
Yeah.
So I think that will round up the news. We're going to try and speed through this week because we have some awesome questions from the viewers. So as you all know at home, every week we open up our social media outlets for you guys to ask some questions and we pick the best 4. This week your followers and supporters sent in some unbelievable questions, so it's harder to decipher down to just 4, but we're going to start here. So the first one was one from one of your followers. It was, I do yoga, strength training and martial arts. Would Pilates aid in my CrossFit training? Actually, that was from Siobhan, actually, I guess last week.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's really interesting is when I started teaching, I've been in the Pilates world for a while, but when I started teaching, after 2 months of teaching, I started CrossFit. So I straight away put that into the CrossFit gym that I worked at back home, which was a whole different way of teaching. So just, focusing a lot on balance, focusing a lot on stability, because I think it's a lot of a lot of the time when people start CrossFit, they get a lot of injuries and a lot of little niggles where they're not stable in their joints. So if you don't know, Pilates focuses on the smaller muscles on the body, so yeah, it works really well because you can just stabilize, you're less likely to get injured, and they go hand in hand, especially all the core work, things like toes to bar, straight toes to bar, if you want to ever do those. So they work really well together.
Well, one of the, it pains me saying this, but one of the best bits of advice I've been given was actually from Sam, and it was talking about mobility, and it was saying that it's all right being able to get into the positions, we need to be strong in those positions.
Yeah, well that's it, because you've got flexibility and mobility, where mobility you need to be able to hold, like you say, those positions. It's all good and well being able to have flexible hamstrings, but if you can't actually hold your leg there with the strength of your hip flexors, I mean, you're just going to bend and potentially hurt yourself if you're just super bendy. So you need that stability as well.
Yeah, I think that Pilates is something really interesting that we can add into our training, because if you do, say, for example, in this question, you do yoga, you do strength training, you do CrossFit, you do martial arts, it's so hard to fit everything in. But if you take it out and you go to a Pilates class, then all the stuff that you're unable to do inside the gym or in the MMA or whatever it is, you can start to get better at those things outside of the gym with the Pilates, and that's going to help you back when we're getting back inside the gym.
I mean, in strength training terms, when we look at like accessory movements when we're looking at strength training, we could almost say that Pilates would be an unbelievable accessory to 100%. Have for CrossFit.
Yeah, 100%. And a lot of the time when I see people doing their accessory programs, a lot of it looks like Pilates.
Yeah.
You know, all the core work, it goes hand in hand. It's the same sort of stuff. But if you get yourself to Pilates class, you know, with me, I always try and do an all round the body workout per se. If you can then just do at least 1 or 2 classes, you know, you don't have to be doing it every week, especially if you're doing all of that. You can at least learn the basics, the fundamentals to then apply to your training.
Awesome. I don't think that could have been answered any better.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. It's like, it's always good to outreach to people. It's like, you go to yoga, you go to CrossFit, you go to MMA, and you're going to learn about the things that you need to learn within that environment. And then if you put yourself out there and go to a different sport or a different environment or a different instructor or coach, they're going to be able to offer you more high-end advice and experience in other areas of the of your body and your strength.
Well, it's something you talk about all the time is transferable skills.
Yeah, and outreaching to someone that's allows you to progress with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so question 2. This was sent in from Lynn, one of our long-time followers.
Number one fan,
and it's why on some days do I feel overtrained and tired but go to the gym and smash it, then on other days I feel the exact same but don't perform as well. Now, I have my own feelings on this, and I'll finish off talking about them.
Ladies first. Do you have any input on that?
If I'm honest, I'm not too sure.
Okay, no, that's good.
Yeah, so it is a really hard question, because it's really hard to know how you're going to feel until you start the workout. Like, some days I'll go into the gym and I feel amazing, and then I'll start training and suddenly I feel tired and slow, and other days I feel like I'm going to have a hard session and it turns out to be really good. And I feel like there's so many external factors these days, like people wearing whoops or different kind of measurements on their wrist or within their body to track how their recovery is. And I feel like that can sometimes put you in a mindset of feeling that, oh, I've got 20% recovery of my whoop, my session today is automatically going to be bad, and then I come in and have a great session. So I feel like is listening to your body and seeing how you feel once you start warming up and once you start moving. Because sometimes if you've worked all day and you've been sat down all day and your body hasn't really had a chance to get going, you haven't like flushed through some fresh blood flow, you haven't got your heart rate up, as soon as you do that, your body might get this second like wind of energy, and then suddenly you might feel really good. And it might also be the other side of things. You've had a great day at work, you've been really productive, and you get to the gym and suddenly you're out of energy and you're going to have a bad session. But I would suggest going off feel and then always scaling accordingly. So if I go into the gym and I know that I've got a certain number or percentage that I have to be hitting, if I feel great in my warm-up and my warm-up sets, I hit those numbers and I'm happy. If I don't feel so good, or I feel like that's going to be unachievable for me today, then I'll just take the weight down 10%, or I'll reduce some of the reps within the movement, so I'm still able to move and progress and still hit a stimulus that isn't causing me more of like a mental kind of barrier, thinking, oh, I'm getting worse or I'm not improving within my session. It's like, no, I'm not feeling 100% today, so I'm still going to scale down the workout and make sure I can still get the work done or some of the work done and leave feeling like I accomplished something, rather than try to hit numbers that are feeling unachievable for me today and leave feeling like I've got worse or feeling like I haven't achieved what I should have achieved. So I think it's just smart scaling your training around how you're feeling as well.
Yeah, so without getting too much into like, for Lynn in particular, like testosterone release or growth hormone release, because obviously they're both not linear. Our body doesn't release and excrete the exact same amount every single day. It's kind of just almost random. So that obviously is going to affect how we're feeling on the day. It just is. Now, one thing that we spoke about in the past, which I'm super passionate about, is I don't really like the word overtraining. I much prefer the phrase under-recovered. To me, you can train, say, 2 or 3 times a day if you are sleeping 12 hours a day and eating the perfect macronutrients and doing the correct mobility and accessory movements all the time. Now, what you need to maybe think about these days, what would be maybe nice for you personally, is maybe to get a little food diary on the go for the day, and then it may show you that some days you are fueling up better than others, and that's why you feel better in the gym. Or sometimes the night before you're eating better and recovering better, sleeping better, eating better foods directly post-workout, which are giving you better recovery rates, so that when you're going into the gym then you are better recovered, rather than kind of hanging on this overtraining term.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point of trying to figure out why you're feeling like you're not at your height of your energy, and once you find out what that reason is, then you can start to fix it and hopefully limit the amount of times that you do feel like that.
I mean, your body is the most amazing machine in the world, and if it will like routine, it will like, so when you can find out what works specifically for you and you can stick in that routine, the sky's the limit for where you can take your body then. And it's just a little bit super simple about maybe doing diaries, thinking outside the box about what you're doing and what's causing these like peaks and troughs.
Yeah, and I think not just not being as hard on yourself, especially like Sam said, if you're having a day where you're having to scale back, that doesn't matter, because if you're scaling back then and listening to your body, the next day or the following is going to be better because you've done that. You don't need to be hitting PBs all the time. You don't need to be, beating the person next to you. It's not a constant competition. I think for me, starting in CrossFit, I started in a box where it was very competitive, and you always feel like you need to be pushing because that person's going at that pace. It's like, no, you're there for you, you're not there for anyone else.
That is exactly why I use RPE with my clients, an RPE scale. Because 7, if you're lifting at an RPE of 7.5, one day that might be 100 kilograms, the next day it might be 110 kilograms, the next day it might be 90 kilograms. Just because of how recovered you are, how fueled up you are, you're still hitting that RPE of 7.5. It just, the weights are just different. For somebody like Sam, who's like obviously a top class athlete, it becomes a little bit different when, well, in relation to me, it may be a little bit different because you do have to hit numbers specifically to progress. But for me, when I'm working with like more general public, the RPE scale does exactly what you're saying there. It scales for life, the RPE scale. But it's like, today I just need to hit a 7.5 or hit an 8. It doesn't particularly matter what weight I'm lifting.
Yeah, really good.
Okay, so question number 3. It's going to be specifically for you, Lauren. It's how often should I do Pilates to realistically see some benefits?
So, a bit of a varied answer I have on this one. So when you're, say, first starting out and never done Pilates before, you're probably looking at doing it at least twice a week, just so you can understand the movements, understand the breathing that goes into things, engagement of pelvic floor, all the different aspects that kind of makes Pilates. And then after that, I guess it depends on, your routine. So like the first question, if you're already doing loads, then do it once a week. So I think that's absolutely fine. But if you're someone who struggles with your back, say in CrossFit, I get a lot of people say, look, I just feel my back a lot, I think my core's weak. Okay, well, maybe 2-3 times, just to get that going, understand what you need to work on and understand the feeling of getting your core strong. Because the biggest mistake a lot of people come to me with is they're injured and they say, oh, my chiro or physio has told me to do Pilates. Well, if you maybe tried it before when I told you the first 10 times, then you probably wouldn't have got to that point, because you would have been more body aware, you would have had a bit more strength in your joints. Yeah, so I'd say if you're just starting out, 2-3 times a week, if you can kind of take on all the basic techniques, and then maybe 1-2 depending on what you're trying to gain from it. If you're just trying to gain overall strength to help you with your training, okay, once is fine. But if you're working towards, you know, building more, fixing your weaknesses, then maybe twice if you've got any back issues. Or
so I guess we're kind of saying that it depends what role you're expecting Pilates to play in your training.
What you need it for, exactly.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What would you say that would be, in more of like a practical sense, if someone came in that just did CrossFit and you said, oh, you should do Pilates, if you could give them like an idea of something that it would help them with, or what sort of movements they expect to see an improvement in if they started doing more Pilates?
Yeah, so my go-to is core and glute work. So, you know, things in like 4-point kneeling, really working on core engagement and glutes at the same time. I think a lot of people don't realise that the two go hand in hand. If you have a strong core and strong glutes, you're way less likely to get any back issues, because they're going to protect you. You know, our core is obviously protecting our spine. Same with our glutes. They both link together. So any core and glute work is always my go-to.
I think something that probably that could stem from is that we live in like the social media age and stuff, and people automatically think of core work as just working on a six pack.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And it's not.
You can have the best six pack I've ever seen, and you can still have no internal core. Like, I've taught so many people, especially back home, CrossFit athletes, on the Reformer. I don't know if you've ever seen the Pilates Reformer, the machine that moves and it has like resistance springs on. But they will be doing core exercises that, for me, you know, they're just natural to me now. They'll be doing those and they are dying, like sweating, and they've got the strongest six packs you've ever seen, but their actual internal core is not there. So, you know, obviously you'll know your transverse abdominis, rectus abdominis, you know, I can name all the muscles, but yeah, there's a lot more than just the rectus abdominis, which essentially hinging forward and back, that is your six pack. Like, that's all you've kind of got there. Where if you completely strengthen the whole thing all the way around, the core's at the back of the body as well, you're going to protect yourself so much more than just doing hinging movements to get a six pack.
That's made me super happy, because in episode 2 we touched upon the differences between body composition and sport performance, and that's just a prime example there.
Yeah, I think sorry, I forgot what I was going to say about that. Yeah, that was it. So I'm thinking, like, around this, like we touched on earlier, Lauren, is a lot of people when they come to the gym, they're always like wanting to get to the next level, and then they might get to the point where they get an injury, and it's building awareness like this of telling people, well, actually, if you take things a little bit slower and you go to, say, a Pilates class once a week, then if we look at the long game, in 5-6 weeks time or even longer, they're going to be further ahead than where they would have been if they hadn't have done that and just gone straight through. And I don't know if this set is old-fashioned or whatever, but I feel like, for me, I didn't really know too much about Pilates, and I felt like it was something for like middle-aged women. So I think it's just trying to build some awareness that it is for male and female, athlete, non-athlete, something for everyone.
Yeah, I've had guys say to me that they didn't think they had a pelvic floor, which is really funny. They thought pelvic floor was just for women because they need it to have babies. It's like, no, if you didn't have a pelvic floor, you'd be peeing all over the floor constantly. But yeah, a lot of people think it's just for pregnant women, it's just for injuries, but it's not just rehab, it's prehab. It's making sure you're strong enough to do all the movements. And even with people that are body aware, like me, when I started CrossFit, I completely messed my knees up. I couldn't squat for months, didn't squat for 6 months because it was so painful. Even just walking upstairs was really bad. And I needed someone behind me to make sure I was, you know, properly aligned. I think I know my alignment, but you need a coach. You need someone to say, look, you're slightly off, this is going to not help, or you're bouncing in your squat, you're going to, you know, hurt your knees. So everyone needs that, someone to kind of put them back into alignment.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that everyone needs to understand that everything is fixable within reason. And I know a lot of women in CrossFit will have issues with jumping or skipping and double unders, and they feel like that's it. It might be quite an embarrassing topic to talk to the coach or whatever, but you're someone that can actually like help with that issue, right?
Yeah. So prime example, someone back home in England, they had 3 kids. She loved running all the time, and she would have to wear like several pads, a couple of pairs of pants when she'd go running, because she was just constantly weighing herself, which is, you know, not nice, very embarrassing, not a nice place to be. She started training with us, me and a couple of other teachers at the studio. I think she was doing it like 2-3 times a week. And funny enough, she had gone to a pelvic floor physio who had just told her to squeeze all her holes, like you're holding in a fart. That's all she'd been told. Like, just do that. She was like, okay. But came to us, we were obviously teaching her Pilates, teaching her to squeeze her pelvic floor properly. And after, I think, 3.5 months it was, running completely fine. Like, pelvic floor was fixed. Like, I mean, she did pelvic floor exercises at home as well, but just having somebody say it to you a different way, she finally got it and clicked, rather than just being told to squeeze all her holes.
That's amazing. It just proves that everything can be fixed if you have the right coach and someone has the right understanding. Is you don't have to live a life like that.
Of course, like there can be complications, obviously, like, you know, rare things that go on. But with pelvic floor, like you say, double unders is always the number one thing with girls. And yeah, with the right exercises, that can be fixed.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to move on to something again. So another topic. So this is something that I think needs to be spoke about. We spoke about it slightly last week, or in week 2, sorry. But we're going to speak about it a little bit more now. We're going to try and be super quick with it. But it's a question sent in from one of the viewers. How does the menstrual cycle affect strength training? Okay, so I'll talk just quickly just about kind of the science and the research behind it, and these guys are going to give probably better real-world examples than I could give. So basically, the average menstrual cycle lasts for 28 days. We can split that into 2 phases, the follicular and the teal phase. And then from those 2, that's before and after ovulation. And we can break those down into 4 mini phases. So it's early follicular, then mid luteal and late luteal. And basically, estrogen is highest in the body during the 2 mid phases, so either side of ovulation. Now, estrogen is obviously, people look at estrogen as like a negative term, but it's not. It's actually a great hormone. It's actually something that we can use pretty powerfully. Not only does it increase our mood, which obviously may increase like the motivation, it's also super anti-inflammatory, which is good, obviously, when we're training. And it can also help with our like DOMS, or delayed muscle onset, like neuromuscularly as well. But also the cravat to that will be that whenever estrogen is high, the ligaments and the tendons become like lax. So a chance of injury could be slightly higher there, but because it's ligaments and tendons, we can like resolve that by just mobilizing and warming up better. Now during week 4, do you want to pronounce the hormone for me?
Now you've made me forget myself. Progesterone.
Yeah. So progesterone is released during week 4, and that is to level out our estrogen levels. And then, obviously the side effect of that could be that your body's core temperature does get raised. So during week 4, our body's core temperature is raised. So if we're trying to plan on, say, do like anything like super exhausting or super strenuous or super kind of intense, we need to remember that your body's core temperature can be raised for that. Now the cravat to that would also be that every single person's different, and every single person experiences different things during this. So this is where we're going to talk to you 2 guys about Sam, how you work with clients based around this and what kind of advice you give clients, and we're going to talk to Lauren about real world experiences, which is going to be great.
Yeah, so for me, first thing when I have a female client is I just want to make them feel as comfortable as possible, and I know some females may feel embarrassed about talking about stuff like this, and it's just making sure that we can have communication on this subject and just trying to make them understand how it's going to relate towards their training. So I send them a little bit of understanding, a little bit of science, not too much, just so they can kind of understand the different phases of their cycle if they don't already know, and how we're going to work around that with their training. So first off, the first kind of like 14 days or to 3 weeks, we're going to be in more of a intense kind of training phase where we're kind of feeling our best around day 14, and then after that we're going to slowly, especially on week 4, kind of go into a little bit of a deload, or we're going to reduce the amount of intensity that we're doing, all the load. So we may see an increase in body weight movements, light cardio, stuff like that on week 4, and then we'd be looking to go back into week 1, peaking through week 2, early week 3, and then seeing again a drop off. And it's really nice as a coach and a athlete to kind of be able to program your weeks around that cycle, so it kind of fits in. But then importantly, keeping the communication between me and my client, making sure that everyone, like Mike said, everyone is different and everyone's cycle can vary. So it's making sure some people feel like they may not be able to train through the last kind of like 3-4 days, and they may need to take complete rest. Other people may feel like they're able to completely train through the cycle. And unfortunately, we can't time competitions, we can't time things like that. So depending on certain circumstances, sometimes it's obviously going to fall in the wrong time of the month, but we just need to make sure that we're working around that to get the best possible results that we can.
Perfect.
Cool. Yeah, so with me, a couple of years ago, I was still on the pill, and I've been on it since I was like 15, so 10 years of being on it. And I think, this won't be all doctors in England, but you'd just be given it. It would just be the norm. You wouldn't really be told about what it is or what it does. But anyway, I got to a point where I was like, right, okay, I actually want to understand my body. I want to understand being a female, because for me, I think it massively masked being a female, like how I felt when I was training. At one point, when I was working with my nutrition, got super lean, but my energy levels were kind of just always the same. I was also in a place of just going for it and, super obsessive. Anyway, so came off the pill a couple of years ago, and then from that, my skin completely changed. Like, I had the worst skin I've ever had, hormonal acne that was just horrendous. Was so depressed, so down about it, and had to go back on. From that, I got to a point where I'm back on it now, but this is not where I wanted to be. I wanted to learn about my body. So then I had to adjust my nutrition, making sure I was getting the right nutrients into my body to be able to come back off, which I think a lot of women don't realise. Your body can sort of fight against you when you try and come off it, because if you've been on something for 10 years, your body doesn't understand what's going on. It's trying to help you in every way it can, but there's no balance there. Anyway, so came back off, and straight away with my training, I was like, wow, I can actually see differences in how I feel. And a big thing you said earlier was like temperature. There was points in the gym where I had barely even done anything and I was sweating so much. And I can only imagine what's it called? I've forgotten now. When women lose their periods as they get older. What's the word?
Menopause.
There you go, menopause. Wow. I can only imagine what that must feel like, because felt different changes in my body, different symptoms, and I was getting frustrated of times where I couldn't hit lifts, or I felt really drowsy, or I just felt grumpy. But the more I worked with it and then started tracking it, and I also worked with my friend Hannah on it, you realize how you can utilize it. And people get annoyed with the times they can't lift heavier, but if you actually utilize that time properly, when you come back around to be able to, when you get your period again and coming towards ovulation, you can then probably hit heavier because you've looked after your body in that sort of recovery stage, if you will. And a big thing for me was, in the gym, I'm surrounded by really supportive guys in the gym, but if they're sort of saying, oh, you should lift heavier, you have to literally turn around and say, look, this is not the time. Yeah. I'm working lower today. I'm working through more of a sort of recovery phase, cardio phase. This isn't the time, but you get the benefits in the long run if you actually listen. And now where I track it, because coming off the first time where I didn't look after my body, I was having like 42-day cycles when I first came off, because my body was obviously trying to balance out. Now when I hit a 28-day cycle and I get my period, I'm so happy. And my boyfriend's hilarious. He's like, why are you so happy about getting your period? I'm like, because it's working well. My body knows what it's doing, which is what you want in an ideal circumstance.
What I absolutely love stuff there, what you both have said, which I think is super important, is that we don't have to look at it as a negative thing. We can actually use it almost as a tool to program our strength cycles, to program our workouts around, so we can almost try and, I'll just quickly summarize, we can always try and peak around the middle. Around about ovulation, we can peak around there and taper up to it and taper down. And the last week can probably be a deload week if we need it to be. So if we're going to try and hit like test weeks or PR weeks or anything like that, we just throw it right in the middle. We know that our estrogen is going to be highest then. We just make sure our mobility and our warm-ups are a little bit more intense because we're doing a test week and because estrogen is a little bit higher. And we can use it as a tool to try and push ourselves a little bit further. So let's look at it as something positive.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of women and girls I know are scared of coming off the pill in a way because they don't want it to sort of change their body, or they feel that they're going to gain loads of weight. And it's like, well, speak to a coach, understand what you need to do as you come off the pill. Like I said, my body was so confused. My skin just went horrendous because I just was like, cut off the pill, done, it's fine, it's out of my body. It's not out of your body. It can take I think something like 2 years for it to actually leave your system. I'll
just give a real world example of that. So what you need to remember with anything with our body, anything we put in our body for a prolonged amount of time, our bodies are the most amazing things in the world, whether it be testosterone or whether we're on the pill or whatever. Whenever we put something in our body for a prolonged amount of time, our bodies are going to stop working hard to produce what we're putting in our body. So when you come off the pill, our body's going to think to yourself, I don't want to come off it because it's a job that I don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
It's making my life easier by being on it. So it's going to fight to stay on it because it's a living, breathing thing that's going to try and make things as easy for itself as it physically can.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a hard one because obviously as you get older as a female and you start to creep up to your 30s, if you're looking to have kids and things like that, you kind of want to be coming off and trying to get that normal cycle again, because that's something a lot of people struggle with. And that's not to say that it's a bad thing to be on, but for me personally, I didn't like how it just masked everything, because the amount of symptoms I then felt coming off it, I was like, wow, this is actually what it's like to be a girl. Like I had no idea, because it masked all of that.
It's awesome to hear it first-hand experience, and I hope that you guys out there kind of learned something a little bit science-based, a little bit experience-based. And if you guys are out there and struggling with it or worrying about it, hopefully this will be like a thing to you that it can be a positive thing. We can use it. We can make it positive.
100%.
Yeah, I really like what you said about how you can use it to help you and make you feel better. From like an athlete point of view, if I'm speaking with someone that really wants to improve in CrossFit and I sit them down and say, well, basically we're going to do 3 weeks on and then 1 week kind of off, they'll be like, well, actually I just want to send it as much as I can and push it. And you saying that, if you do it right and you give yourself that week, in the 2-3 weeks after, you're going to feel it amazing and you're going to be able to progress much quicker in the long run. And I think that's something that isn't spoken about enough, especially from an athlete point of view.
100%.
Where you feel like you have to just get training in, and it comes into like more of a recovery topic as well. We talk about overtraining, but yeah, it's just making sure we can use it to our advantage and feel better in the long run.
Well, we talk about transferable skills and technique being as important as sending it in the gym. That last week there is, for me, just screams out, let's work on technique, let's work on transferable skills, let's work on recovery, let's work on our zone 2 training, let's work on all the important things that people maybe don't like working on as much.
Yeah, there's 1,000 things you can do in that 4th week that are lesser impact, a little bit easier on the body, that are going to make you better in the long run.
That's actually going to help you more than it is doing 40-minute EMOMs every day.
Yeah.
So, okay guys, I just want to say a massive thank you to all you guys at home who sent in those questions. They were some awesome questions. I learned something, so I hope you guys did at home as well. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on to our guest and look at some topics for our guests. So we've got a question here that we ask all of our guests. And it is, what is the most important thing you do outside the gym that helps you inside the gym?
So number one thing, and we've touched on it a little bit, is sleep. If I do not get enough sleep, I can't deal. Like Sam said the other week about joining swim club at 6 a.m. No, I can't. I'm not doing it. Like I'll occasionally get up early. Like I said, one of my best friends is here and she wants me to go on early morning sunrise walks. Okay, I'll do that a couple of times, but I need my sleep. And with working like UK hours, sometimes I'm up quite late. But if I don't get at least my 8 to 9 hours, I'm not okay.
Awesome. I think it's good because the last couple of guests we had on, one was talking about the importance of food and fueling, you're talking about the sleep and recovery. And hopefully we're painting a picture for you guys at home, the most important things.
I think if we take it back to like Lynn's question at the start, is why am I feeling like overtrained and potentially tired? Well, this is kind of answering, maybe it's your sleep, maybe it's your diet. It's all the things outside of the gym that are going to have your impact inside the gym. And I just really thought you were going to say Pilates, so the answer to that question.
I was 100% sure as well, but I'm so happy that you did. But I think this is probably a nice little moment to think about why we talk about this podcast and be called Life Outside the Box, because hopefully what we're doing is we're opening everyone's eyes to the time you spend outside the gym. If you train for 2 hours a day, the other 22 hours are as important of those 2 hours. All the things outside that you're doing outside there affect what we're doing, and our guests are coming on and screaming that to you as well, which is really good.
Yeah, like I think, being 18, 19, 20s, I would be out all the time. I wasn't necessarily into CrossFit then, but being out all the time and then working, I think I worked in a supermarket, then, you'd be fine. You just plow through, you have a few monsters and you get on. Whereas as you get older, you can't do that all the time. You need your sleep, and that might make me sound really boring, but no, I love my sleep.
And I wish that when I was 18, somebody taught me all this stuff and I would have been able
just
to
balance it a
better.
bit more. You can still go out and live your best life, but you need to balance it.
Yeah, that kind of leads on to a question that we ask you, like normally at the end, but it kind of sits into this conversation. So if you were to start your journey again now, what piece of advice would you give yourself as a 16, 17-year-old thinking about getting into the gym?
Yeah, to slow it down. I mean, one thing I didn't mention is I did go to performing arts school when I was 19 for 3 years because I wanted to be a dancer. So just not being so hard on yourself when you start something, just learning the techniques, like the amount of little injuries I've had over time from dance and from CrossFit is just ridiculous. So just scaling everything back, and also getting a coach, whether that's in nutrition, whether that's in weightlifting. You need to be told like what you need to work on, accessories you need to work on, because if you've got a stable, the stable fundamentals that you're starting with, then you're going to do so much better in the long run rather than just going in and injuring yourself. And that's, I think, why CrossFit gets a bad name, because people just go all guns blazing. They want to be doing all the big movements, but then, they'll jump up, try and do a muscle up and then rip the shoulder. You need to just slow it down and not be so hard on yourself.
Awesome. So we're going to quickly get through these now. So what's your favourite thing to do outside of the gym? So how do you... It can't be sleep again.
Okay. Sleep. A really nice one being in Bali is food.
That was mine.
It's tying into everything, but the amount of food options here, we're very lucky that it's also so cheap for really good quality food. You can eat healthy so easily. I mean, you can eat unhealthy as well. I had the best giant melted cookie last night with ice cream, which was fantastic. But need to get nutrients in. You need to be hitting the right calories. Going back to females, I think so many females think they need to be in a deficit forever to lose weight. You can't do that. The most lean I've been was when I was training a lot, but I was on 2,450 calories, and I felt amazing. To be really technical, my body fat percentage was 21.5%, which isn't even super low, but because of the training and getting the right amounts, protein in and everything, I felt and looked so good in myself. To big myself up, but I did because I was getting everything in and eating the right amount of food.
I love that answer.
Here he goes.
No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm happy. I'm happy.
Yeah, that really links back to episode 2 where we speak about the difference between body composition is more important.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. No, that's made me happy because that's all we promote. That's all we promote as like a podcast, as like a group of people. We just promote that it's so much more important to fuel yourself than it is to starve yourself. It's just
and feel good rather than looking good.
Well, and hopefully both.
Yeah, exactly.
One will bring the other.
Yeah, that's the thing. We speak about it all the time. But when you train and eat for sporting performance, body composition will come. When you train and eat for body composition, it doesn't necessarily mean that sporting performance is going to come.
Nice.
Okay, so our last topic of the day is I think something that the guys at home are going to really, really be interested in. So we're going to look at now some barriers to success in a female fitness journey. So we broke this down to 3 mini topics, and the first one we're going to look at is something which may deter people from going to the gym, specifically CrossFit, is going to be the body composition changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think the main thing I've heard from people, I'll give you a nice story actually. A woman at a studio I work at back in England, we were doing like a hamstring exercise, and she said, does this build my quads? Like, I don't want to do this if this is going to give me big legs. I looked at her and I said, oh no, like this is hamstring exercise, don't worry. She said, oh no, I don't, I'm feeling my quads. So I tried to give her different cues to help her. And she kept just saying the same thing. Oh, I just don't want to get big legs. I said, look at me. I said, if you want big legs like me, you'd have to eat a hell of a lot. You'd have to train a hell of a lot. You need progressive overload. You are not going to get big legs from this one Pilates exercise. And it was so frustrating because she said, oh yeah, well, I hate CrossFit anyway. I thought, well, good, because fine.
Because you're doing Pilates,
you're
not
doing
CrossFit.
Yeah, exactly, you're doing Pilates. So it's just really interesting that a lot of women, well, just not educated on the topic, they think if they lift a few weights, they're going to end up massive, and obviously genes and aesthetics come into it massively. Like for me, when I lift weight, my arms, my shoulders, they just grow. Like I'm lucky in that sense to some people, and unlucky if other people think so. But a lot of people, guys especially, said to me, how do you get your shoulders so wide? I said, well, I'm made that way. Yeah. I can go against it and go, oh no, I don't want to lift heavy. Well, actually no, I love lifting heavy weights. Like I love how my body can do that, and you've just got to embrace that. But side note to that, if you've got a coach that you say to them, look, I want to feel better in myself, but I don't want to get super big, okay, well we can work around that. But a lot of women are just scared of going down the weightlifting, the weightlifting route. But it's been proven, I'm sure Mike you can tell us, as females get older, I know a lot of female athletes that are in their 40s, 50s, their bodies have the most incredible changes when they have started lifting weights, and they don't necessarily start till they're 40, and then they love how their bodies change and adapt. So yeah, a lot of women definitely, I think, are scared of bulking and getting big and too muscular, when actually you need to embrace what your body can do.
I'm sure that's something you've come across in the past, being a personal trainer. That statement that really used to get to me when I used to personal train gyms is, I don't want to be bulky. And in my head I'm thinking, I train 5 times a day for 5 years to try and put any lean muscle mass on.
Yeah.
You doing 3 sessions a week is not going to put you massive amounts of muscle mass on.
Yeah, so I probably hear that same statement, I'd say once a week or once every 2 weeks from people in the gym. And it is hard, and I feel like coming into the gym environment, especially into a CrossFit gym, like they can have a look around and they'll see some of the people within the gym and they'll think, oh, I don't want to look like that. Or they'll go on social media or they'll watch a CrossFit Games video or something and they'll see someone on there and they're like immediately put off because I don't want to look like that, I don't want to do that. But again, like from a coaching point of view, you have to try to give them the benefits of what they're going to get out of weight training. So it's not just about putting muscle or putting size on, it's about making your body healthier, making your body stronger, increasing like your bone density, stuff like that, and talking to them like when we think about a simple movement like getting up out of a chair or sitting on a toilet or something, it's like when you're older especially, it's like, do you want to be able to do that? And if you're not training your body and your muscles, they're not going to hang around forever. And I think especially when people are getting older, it's important that they're moving through a decent range of motion, and highlighting that this is kind of why we're doing it. We're not doing it to go to the CrossFit Games or to be in a bodybuilding show, but
you might go to the games though, you never know.
No, absolutely not.
That's really nice. Yeah, that's why I'm working on it. Thank you.
Yeah, that was to you, Mike. Yeah.
So I think I couldn't agree with you both more. I think that the importance is like having realistic expectations in this, and people look at extreme examples and they think, well, this extreme person does this. They just don't realise how much they do it and what they do outside the gym, also food-wise, sleep-wise, recovery-wise, to look a certain way. And they think, well, this person does CrossFit or does strength training and they look this way, so I don't want to do that. When realistically, it's probably that person is an extreme example. It's probably their whole life, and that's why they look that certain way. There's still benefits that you guys can get without making those extreme body composition changes.
100%. And there was a really heartwarming video that went around, going back to being able to do things when you're older. I think CrossFit shared it, of an old guy in a shed, and he just kept like standing up trying to pick up a kettlebell, and then he was trying to lift it up higher, trying to put it on a shelf, and he was doing it every single day. And then the last bit of the video, his grandkids come round and he lifts his grandkid up and like moves him around and has him in the air. And it's just those little things that make you go, that's why I want to be able to do these things. And going back to what I was saying about females lifting at 40, 50, because they realise how strong they get and how their joints get stronger, bone density. It's a huge benefit with weightlifting to be able to grow old in a really good way.
100%. And also, just without going on too much about this, with strength training, 'cause it's not really particularly on body composition, but when you sat at a desk all day working, when you specifically Pilates, when you're working and you're stabilising muscles, when you're sat at a desk all day, you're going to be less likely to get gain injury from that if you do Pilates or strength training than you do if you don't.
Yeah, a lot of my friends sat at desks even at my age, in their mid-20s, are already getting back pain, especially with, I'm not going to say, but the big C that's been going on the past couple of years. Yeah. But where they've been sat working at home, they've completely lost the muscles in their arse and the muscles in their legs, and therefore then feeling their back. It's like, well, if you're sat down all the time and not working those muscles, they're just going to disappear. You need to move more, you need to get up, you need to do any exercise, not just Pilates, but just things to get you moving again.
This is why I love this podcast and this kind of thing, because we started talking about body composition, but we ended up talking about performance and stuff.
Yeah. But this is a nice thing, because this is actually something that you can do inside of the gym that's going to help you outside the gym. Which is kind of opposite what we usually talk about, but it's nice that the gym is also useful. It's like we're not just talking about everything that's outside, you do stuff inside that's going to actually help you outside as well.
Okay, next topic. This is something that I'm super interested in hearing your opinion on. So, anxiety over starting a new sport, or let's put it all in one, I think. So, anxiety over starting a new sport or going to a new gym.
Yeah, so for me, I remember so clearly starting CrossFit. I've done a little bit of weight training previously, but nothing too crazy, literally just messing about, trying to use pulling machines at the gym. I used to drive down this long road to my gym at home, so anxious and so scared, because there's so much to learn, right? And that goes for a lot of different sports. And I just was worried about what I'd look like, what other people would think of me, be judging me. And a big thing I always get, and my friends will laugh at this, oh, but you look super strong, so you should be good at this. Well, no, like my shoulders are just there for fun, like that. I'm just born with them. It doesn't mean I know.
Also put a bit more added pressure.
Yes, it's like people think that I'm going to be able to do things straight away. It's like, no, there's so much to learn. And it really scared me, just all the different names of the movements, with weightlifting, hang clean, high hang clean, low hang, like what on earth are you going on about? Jerk, like what is that? So that really, there's a joke. That really, freaked me out for a long time. But I was lucky that 2 months of being there, I then got a job as a Pilates instructor there. So it meant that I could be there during the day, working with the coaches and learning a little bit quicker. But a lot of people who come in who've never done anything before, it's really scary, like learning all the new movements.
So I've had instances, and it's not just with females, it's with males as well. When I used to personal train and own the gyms back home, I would have people who were super anxious about coming in and super anxious about starting, and what I would do is I'd get them to come into the gym, meet me in reception, so they were in the gym, and then maybe go for a walk outside. So they were breaking down that barrier of coming through the door, but they knew they didn't have to do anything in the gym, so it would kind of just gradually work on that. So then we might do where they'd come in through the gym, we'd meet at reception desk, we'd go for a walk, and then come in and just do 5 minutes on a treadmill or something, just gradually build it up. Because at the end of the day, everybody is focused on what they're doing. No one is looking at anybody else. They're focused on what they're doing, and it's really hard to understand that.
Yeah, like I love this topic because I'm lucky enough at CrossFit Wonderlust we get people coming every single day, and it's their first time going to a gym, which is awesome because it keeps me fresh as a coach and allows me to go through the basics and to get more people into sport and into fitness, which I absolutely love. So for me, it comes down to, I feel like it's the coach's responsibility, especially if you go into a class environment, to ease any anxiety or any worry that a new member may have. So for me personally, if someone new comes into the gym, I like to give them just a quick run through of how the flow of the class is going to go. So let them know that we're going to do a little warm up, and then we're going to bring them back in, show them the movements, and then I'll go up to them individually after that, and I'll say, look, today is your first day. We're just going to use today to build a little bit of confidence, build a little bit of awareness. We're going to keep the weights really light and make them feel at ease and make them feel absolutely no pressure. There's no pressure to add any weight or to worry about what anyone else is doing. Today we're just going to focus on you and moving through, and then tomorrow we can look at improving on where we left off today, and making sure that they understand that, and then making sure that they know exactly what they're doing, because at the end of the day, the gym is a business as well, and if they leave feeling like they've been looked after and they've had a great enjoyable time, then they're probably going to sign up and come back. If they feel like they felt like they didn't get the support they needed and they didn't enjoy the experience, then they're probably not going to come back, or they tell their friends they had a bad time. So on both sides, if you're a gym owner, it's important that you're looking after your clients, just because you want them to be part of the community, but also because you want them to feel comfortable and not intimidated, because it is an intimidating environment. So I know in my classes I try to make them fun and have a little bit of a joke around and dance around, and make it seem like more of a fun environment than a super serious boot camp, do this, do that kind of environment.
I think everybody in the industry benefits if people relate the gym with fun and happiness rather than it being daunting and scary.
100%.
So we're going to move on now to the Marmite section of the podcast. Sam, don't look at your phone, you're not allowed to cheat. So this is the dad joke section. Do you want to go first?
Yep, just give me 1 second to remember it in my head.
Okay, I got mine.
Oh, you go then. You go first. I'm trying to remember
Okay,
mine.
this one is to do with the body.
Oh, here we go.
Why are skeletons so calm?
Go on.
Because there's nothing under their skin.
Is it not
Thank
because
you, Google.
is it not because nothing gets under their skin?
No.
Wow. Okay, I've got mine, I think.
Just wait.
Right.
I want to tell the viewers at home that when we told Lauren that we did a dad joke section, she actually texted her dad and asked him for a joke.
I asked him and he sent me a link. He sent me a website link to dad jokes. I was like, no, you're my dad, so you're meant to just give me a dad joke. That's your role. Yeah, rubbish. But anyway, so I found one. Did you hear about the bodybuilder that died of a protein overdose?
Go on.
He'd had way too much.
Oh, I actually like that one. Okay, so I'm slightly upset this week because I had to get rid of a friend. I had to sever contact with one of my friends.
Oh.
It was Dracula. He just started to become a huge pain in the neck.
Oh my god.
Don't laugh, you're only joking.
I hope it's so funny. Because they were terrible. Okay, guys, so that is going to round up our episode for this week. We hope you've all enjoyed it. Sam, you're going to tell us about next week?
Next week we're going to have another special guest on, so stay tuned to our Instagram, and we're going to reveal it all on there. And our Instagram is
at Life Outside the Box Podcast.
Also, if you want to check out Lauren's Instagram, or you have any further questions for her about absolutely anything you heard on the show today, you can find her on her Instagram.
Lauren Jarman Pilates.
Yeah, so we're super lucky that Bali is opening back up, and that means that super interesting people are turning up to the island, and we are going to do our best to bring those to you guys at home. Hope you've enjoyed it. Peace out. Thank you very much for watching.
See you soon.
See you.